Good evening, everyone. It's a lovely and a very, very cold day today somehow. And I welcome you all on our 112th Interaction under Transliterature series. And I'm Neeta Aneja, and I'm the founder of this series. And we've been running this series from the last 1.5 years. We have a YouTube channel wherein we put in all the recordings too. So do subscribe. Thank you, Harper Collins and Vanna, for making this session possible. We had been really looking forward to this session. And today, here we are going to discuss this wonderful book, Siachen 1987, Battle for the Frozen Frontier. This is indeed an action-packed thriller written by the father-daughter duo of Lieutenant General Ramesh Kulkarni ji and Anjali Karpe. Welcome both of you on this session today. It's such a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you. Thank you.
So a brief discussion, a brief introduction. Lieutenant General Ramesh Kulkarni ji happens to have been commissioned in the Garhwal Rifles Infantry in June 1956. And during the course of his career, commanded his battalion in high altitude Arunachal Pradesh, an infantry in counterinsurgency Nagaland, and an infantry division on the Siachin Glacier. And he has been the recipient of the param Vishisht Seva Medal, Uttam Yudh Seva Medal, and Vishisht Seva Medal. And Anjali, his co-author and daughter, she's the deputy head and head of student life at the Bombay International School in Mumbai. And she's quite passionate about holistic education and literature and history. So welcome both of you. A privilege once again and an honor to have you on our platform.
Thank you.
Sir, I'll begin with you straight away. And this question is for you that, you mentioned in your note in the book that Anjali has really helped you piece together the narrative when understandably your memory is darkened with the pain of recalling the narrative, which was definitely a strenuous posting that we're all talking about. So how was the whole process of putting this together with her?
Well, when you get a posting of this nature, it is something, something which I did not expect it to happen. And to be specially nominated to go and take out this division, it was thrilling in a way, but challenging in many ways. I knew that. And I knew that I was going to confront situations which are far unknown to me, generally aware, but not very familiar. Mountains, yes. Snow conditions also, yes. But dealing with glacier environment was something new to me. But I think I adapted myself very well, very fast.
I think it is more to do with how we work together, Dad, on the project.
Absolutely. And I think, yes, sir.
As far as working on this project together, but I was resenting to write it myself for a very long time, for a number of reasons. But then ultimately, when I got down to it, I asked my daughter, can you help me to express in a language which was not purely military, but something which could convey and mean meaningfully to the whole lot of people across the board. And I think she helped me to translate my military thoughts into languages that could be understood by various people. I think that was a great help from her side.
So right. In fact, I think Anjali and your son as well, they've been really insisting for you to be writing this book. And I think it's a result of the entire family getting together and writing this book. Anjali, I think you mentioned somewhere that you understand your father and the circumstances better now that you wrote this book and while in the process of writing. And I'm sure it was a superhuman experience. So the book definitely gives readers the rare opportunity to view the Siachin Glacier and Sir's command of this infantry. So what was the most surprising element for you personally, Anjali, when you kind of put the narrative together?
So like I tell a lot of people, I think, at the end of writing the book, there was deep satisfaction in just bringing it all together. But there was also almost an overriding sense of guilt for just not understanding the extent of stress or tensions that were part of this tenure. I mean, honestly, that's the year I got engaged to my husband. And, in this very, very romantic mood that we were in, Siachen really was very far. As a family, we've never had discussions on matters military around a dining table. So there was no question of dad sharing any of this with us. I think the enormity of the command to be understood 35 years after was almost surreal. It was almost like reliving so much that we didn't know of. And I think that was the beauty of the experience of getting to know that time, getting to know what my father had gone through, and putting it all together so that somebody else could share this whole experience with us. So I think at different points in the narrative, there were different moments of deeper understanding, a better sense and a grasp of why dad would be so upset about not writing this book or not wanting to write this book. So yeah, there was a lot of all that went into the process of writing for me personally.
So I can very well understand, because reliving, basically, when you're writing a book, and especially as I'm sure this posting was so dear to him, and so many memories, maybe some of them he didn't want to relive about talking about again. But yes, putting this together, I'm sure, was different and a very, very difficult process as well. But sir, would you like to maybe perhaps tell us and talk about the military life in the front line, and also that of the families which are really left behind? I mean, non-family posting as Siachen, and you're there in the front line and the families at the back. How was it?
In fact,
I know you've mentioned this a lot in the book, and everyone needs to definitely go through the book, find out much more than we talk about today. But yes, sir, we'd like to know from a frontline leader.
for me, the move was very short, right from Udhampur to the Ladakh. And the family, it was totally unsettling, moving, going to Bombay and getting a house, settling down entirely. I think that was I give a credit to my wife. How did she manage it? I just had no contact with her. No telephones. Those days, a house telephone was considered a luxury. I don't think we had it for a very long time. And so I had to just leave it to her to manage. And I reached to my division. And the shocking state under which I took over, I knew that there was something going amiss in that sector, because I was in the staff in the command headquarters at Udhampur. I knew there was some intrusion being talked about. But as a general staff, principal of staff officer, this was one of the many things happening in the entire command sector. But when I reached, my predecessor told me, Ramesh, while handing over, he said, you see that peak, you got to clear it as soon as you take over. I said, my God, that was something I was jolted a little bit, but I knew I got to face it. And the battalion, which was just gone into that sector in the month of March, just taken over by the end of March, middle April, and I was there in the end of April to use those troops who had just gone there, not too familiar, and a task which was a giant, I think something which I thought was, I don't know whether how to tackle it. So I think the beginning itself was, exciting in a number of ways. And I knew that there is no time delay. Just a month later, we had those posts which are helicopter maintained, which were running out of kerosene, matchboxes, rations, and the Pakistani post which was occupied, which they had called it Qaid-e-Azam. That is the name they had given. And that post had a heavy machine gun mounted, which was interfering the helicopter flights. And so for a month or so or more, There was no helicopter supplies which had reached those posts, no casualties evacuated, nothing, no access to those posts. And I think it was on the 6th of June, my 25th wedding anniversary. I think that was the day I was destined to take a very risky mission of resupplying those posts. Fortunately, that is the day I had adequate helicopter resources. 6 helicopters had come. The army commander had just taken over on the 1st of June. He was here to have a look, see what is happening, because he was getting report in the command headquarters that there is something going amiss here. I received him. I just told him at the base camp, sir, I am going to undertake this risky mission, and the pilots had to be motivated, and they were, I think, daredevil pilots, and they said, yes, if you order us, we'll go, but understand there would be 60% casualties. 6 sorties out of the 10 may not come back, and that is the. I said, okay, but they undertook that mission, and I think that was the beginning of tackling this problem. Subsequently, reconnaissance by Second Lieutenant Rajiv Pandey and his patrol, which confirmed that the ice walls is 18 or 1,200 feet high, 80-degree incline, but it could be assailed. The patrol was killed. The whole 4 people were shot down, and you could see those bodies. And I had to say we had to launch a major operation subsequently, and with a force collected at the base camp, inducted at the base of this feature, and subsequently ascend that, spend 2 days and 2 nights without shelter, without food, and only water get from the melting of the ice. And the 3rd day, when the things were critical, they could not hold any longer. Night attacks were not possible because the weapons getting jammed. So when I spoke to the company commander, go ahead in the daytime, will you? He said, sir, very risky. We are going to be exposed, but we have no option. Either we come down or we go attack. And that is how the Bana post was attacked in the broad daylight at 11:30, and it finished off by 4:30 in the evening.
My God, sir. So salute to you, sir. I mean,
Yeah.
your service to the nation is, I think, uncomparable. And actually, how was the scene at home? I mean, 25th anniversary, they're not celebrating it together. He's somewhere else, where he's needed desperately by the country. But yes, it was a very important milestone.
Actually, I have got married outside of the army, and I have really been witness to so many 25th wedding anniversary celebrations. I know how the whole circus comes alive at this moment. There's a party, there are friends, relatives. It's like such a celebration. Mom and dad will remember their silver wedding anniversary as celebrated at 2 different venues completely. Dad, of course, I don't think beyond the first thought in the morning thought about the anniversary at all, because all he was wondering about was how to get his posts restocked. My mother and I had pav bhaji. The famous Mumbai pav bhaji will be forever embedded in my mother's mind as a mark of her 25th anniversary celebration. So I think it really puts things into context and perspective when you think of how different things are and can be in the way this service works.
So very right, because I read the book, and this is what really was, 25th anniversary is always so special. And yes, you're not there, but yes, even India needs you, the country needs you, and hats off to you, sir, for this. But tell us, sir, how was Siachen really different from other postings that you've had? You've been in Nagaland, you've been in Arunachal Pradesh. Again, very difficult postings, I must say that too. I've been to these 2 places, and I know how difficult still the situation can be there.
Yes.
But how was Siachen with a bone-chilling temperature, -10 to -40, I think, 20,000 feet above the ground?
You see,
how difficult?
The main battalion headquarters, which was manning the main glacier, was at 15,000 feet. So where the commanding officer, the headquarters was located, and the posts were 20,000 around 18,000 to 20,000. I think, and we had no oxygen cylinders because it had to be portable oxygen cylinders, which were in short supply. So the very only for emergency purposes, they were available for the soldiers. Otherwise, the soldier had to get acclimatized by marching right to the 13,000 feet or from base camp and slowly going on to his where he was going to be deployed. And I think that was the only way he could acclimatize. Any problems because of the low oxygen, he had to learn, his system had to learn to cope with it. And there was I think that was I think, and that too for a period of 6 months, the 6 months deployment on the glacier that time. Oh my God. Maybe off and on, he was brought down to the base camp, but he had to again march back to his post. I mean, and after 6 months, the battalion's tenure was changed. The food, he had lost appetite. If you lose him, because he had no desire to eat, whatever was given. And they were the best of the things, selected things. Food laboratories and the various industry was giving packaged foods, canned foods, but he just don't like it. He would take it. We offered him Amul chocolate. He'll eat it for first day with a great interest. Second day, say, no, I don't like it. Chicky.
My God.
You have the hot drinks, Cornvita, Maltova, you name anything, you used to try and give it to him. But when you have no desire to eat, it's very difficult to get him adequate calories, firstly for living in such a high altitude, maintaining his physical fitness and function as a soldier. I think that was the biggest challenge. I think Indian soldier has really, it is unbelievable that ordinary man from village, maybe urban area, officers, they stood up to it and they managed to I wouldn't say challenge the nature, but they tried, they said, at least the nature should not go against them. The nature trying to be, make some sort of a compromise, but the enemy also, which was so determined, and he in both environments and the enemy condition and situation, I think both the soldiers and their officers, I think I take my hat off. I could never imagine this was possible humanly.
Not possible, superhuman, absolutely. And Anjali, the way you described in the book, it's like totally visual portrayal of whatever happened then. Through your writing, along with you get a correct picture of Siachen at that moment of time. So maybe, you're the right person to ask this question, that how was the process of writing for you and how satisfying was it for you?
Neeta, the fortunate part in this was that while I was depending a lot on Dad's narrative itself,
yes.
We were fortunate enough to have visited his headquarters, Nimu, traveled by road, from Srinagar through Zojila, Kargil, and on to his headquarters. And so in some senses, there was an actual experience, at least at the headquarters, which was located at around 10,000 feet or so.
Yeah,
that was where we were. And, every time we spoke about this level of performance at this height, at 10,000 feet, if we walked briskly, we were out of breath. And somehow when I was writing the book, I kept thinking of that. And I kept thinking of what it would have been at 15, 18, 20,000, where a war was being fought. We also saw the soldiers who had completed 6 months of their tenure on the glacier come back. The trucks used to trundle through Nimu on their way to various, places where the soldiers were headed. And it was just terrible to see, until then in almost every cantonment, we had seen crisply turned out soldiers. We had seen well turned out, groomed men. to think of this being the army, very, very shabby, beards overgrown because there was no shaving possible on the glacier. The fact that you couldn't actually wash your clothes, wash your cells well enough. I mean, it all showed in this shrunken group that came down those trucks. So writing about it in some ways was just really, really so amazing, because it was my memories combined with what Dad was talking about in terms of what the soldier went through. The landscape itself, we have done enough travels along the whole Ladakh area to be able to write. So, I know that there are a lot of books written about this area. There are a lot of books written about the action. And Dad and I were actually, in some ways, we had this smile on our face when we said, well, both of us know things far deeper than a lot of those authors who would have just done a quick flying visit, or even the perspective that Dad was able to give to the actions or or his experience. We knew it was a little different, and I think there were moments we felt it was almost magical, this thing marrying and coming together as a narrative.
Absolutely. It's come out as a beautiful narrative. But how were you able to take all the information out of Sir? Because he's gone through it all. And I'm sure there would have been moments where he maybe just maintained a silence, and maybe he's going through something which he doesn't want to recollect. So how was that with you? How were you, as a daughter, take out all the detail from him?
Yeah, it wasn't easy, Neeta, in the sense that I think there were times when he would just tell me, when I would tell him, I said, just explain it more, and he would just be pretty impatient and said, you won't understand. How will you understand? You never went through it. And I would tell him, yes, Dad, but I'm trying to write about it, so you'll have to tell me more. There were other times when I think it was also a venting out of a lot of emotions that had been kept deliberately suppressed. And I think he will talk about it much more on that front. I will just talk about it from the point of view of saying that, Dad, the battle cannot be wrapped up in 8 sentences like you have. I need to know, what did you feel at this point? Then what did you feel 3 hours later? What was it like talking to your men before the action? So I had to go in levels of detail, because I think for him, the recall itself, and maybe that's where Dad can come in. I think that's what he was trying to interject with.
Yes.
You see, the whole experience of that period was so embedded, crystal clear in my mind. Practically, off and on, when I was alone, or it used to flash back in front of me, in front of my memory, and it used to at times haunting, because some of the situations were such I wanted to forget. It is not a question of how I could recount, but I said to relive the situations was a very painful thing for me. And when my daughter used to ask me questions, explain this, I was reliving that period. That was which was most trying as far as I am concerned. Otherwise, that period has, I mean, it just can't go off my mind, memory, or whatever recollections are.
Neeta, I'd like to just add one more thing. I think there were times when I would write something with my understanding, and he would just tell me, this is just not sounding me. This is not sounding technically even right. So please, can we just pause this? And there would be just like a day or two when we just paused. And I remember my mother would say, oh, you haven't written anything for the last 2 days. And we would both tell her, it's okay, we'll come back to it, and that's how we had to just revisit a few things. I mean.
So you couldn't have got a better co-author, I'm sure, who will coax you out of your information, because I'm sure nobody else could have replaced her. I mean, you couldn't have got anybody else to write along with you, because she's your daughter. She has that control also on you.
Yeah. She could tolerate a lot of nonsensical reactions at times. By throwing tantrums, she could accept it. But nobody else would have done that.
Yes, I can see.
At the same time, I could also be, really bold enough as the daughter to say, stop, Dad, we have to get this in perspective. we are writing, we can't abandon it just because of 1, 2, and 3. So I think it was just very beautiful, Neeta. I would say with all the ups and downs also, it was really quite a lovely experience.
I'm sure. Definitely. I'll come back to my conversation a little later. I have few people who are already waiting to ask you questions directly. I have Ms. Bindu Tandon. She is a writer. She's also a thinker. She would like to ask you a question.
Sure.
Can you please unmute her and switch on a video? Yes, hi. Hi, Bindu. Can you please unmute yourself? Yeah. Please unmute your video. No. Yes, fine. Hello. Yeah. Good evening. Hi, Bindu.
Namaskaram. Yes, namaskaram. So, shall I start?
Yes, please, please. Yes.
Okay, so congratulations on this absolutely fantastic book. I know Anjali, I've already commented to her about this, but it's such a pleasure meeting you, General. So my question to you,
So
I'm sorry?
Yes, please go ahead. Yes.
So I have a newfound, there never was any disrespect, but I have a newfound immense respect for what you did, and through what you did, through what our soldiers do, what our men do in uniform do. It's an entirely new perspective from seeing this as something which is happening, in the matter of course. It's happening. The army is there, to reading about it. It's being brought alive in the most fantastic manner. And thank you so much. I will never look at or think of a soldier again in the same way. My question to you, sir, is we have something happening on the Ladakh border with China. Do you believe that there should be secrecy, as there seems to be, or there should be more sharing in terms of the security aspect?
You may recollect in the writing the book also that during my time, 87, 88, 89, there was a total ban on the media coming and visiting us, or we talking to the media. Maybe there are certain political considerations they had. They wanted to play it down, both China, both by India and Pakistan. Both of us were playing down. Everybody said, oh, nothing has happened, all is well, kind of thing. Well, there may be reasons I have no knowledge about. But subsequently, people who wrote, they had no particular, apart from the carrying out research and meeting an odd individual, I can now put across what happened 37 years back, fine. But what is happening now, alive, and it's for the China is concerned, I think, I don't know whether I should make a comment, how that should be dealt with politically, diplomatically, and militarily. I think it will be inappropriate because I have no knowledge what are the compulsions at each of those people. It's very difficult to say that.
Right. Thank you for your frankness. But my only concern was that because you did mention that the press did not even really talk about it at all in those days. And today we have a hyperactive press. So mine was a question to do with just the intensity of interest and revelation. That's it. Not about the politics.
Yes. In fact, that time, whatever was the briefing by the defense public relations officer gave it, Inder Malhotra wrote a big article, a big write-up, saying how the most serious challenge to India's security after 71. But that was all that was said. Nobody questioned what has happened afterwards. Neither the public nor the politicians. Everybody kept quiet after that. Nobody asked me. Nobody even contacted me. And I was not permitted to contact the media either. So there are times where various settings and situations demand certain things. Presently, I'm out of service, out of uniform. I am just like any other citizen. So for me, it will be inappropriate for to make a comment.
Right. Fair
But
enough.
it's very difficult.
Fair enough. Thank you very much for taking that. Anjali, congratulations to you and your father. I loved reading it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Namaskaram.
Bindu. Very generous and very kind. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Bindu, for joining in. Now we have Anirudh. He's the head boy of Manaskriti School, which is a leading school in Faridabad. And he's also the president of Rotary Club. Yes, hi, Anirudh. Over to your questions, please. Please unmute yourself. Yeah.
Good
Thank
evening. Good evening, Anjali ma'am and sir. I wanted to first say thank you for your service and all you've done for our country. I wrote several questions, but my very most important question would be, what advice would you like to give to youngsters like myself who wish to follow in your honorable footsteps and join the military or the army? What advice would you like to give to them? Since we belong to such different generations, I would like to know what your words of advice would be.
Your advice to youngsters like him.
Look, my book is not only about the individual valor, courage, and their fortitude. It is also about leadership, where the young generation starts at any level, in any walk of life. It is not applicable to military. My experiences are not really applicable to the military alone. Corporate sector, any other sector. This is the lessons for leadership, which are in a much more intense manner. And I think my advice to the new generation is learn from the various incidents which are live. Learn out of that how people function properly or messed it up also. Lessons are either way you can take it out. But I think we are not lacking any courage individually when there is facing the danger. But what you require is a courage morally to take a decision, to follow it up, own it up, accept all the responsibilities, accept laurels if you succeed, accept kickbacks also if you fail. That is a leadership, I think, my lesson which I'm trying to put across. I think that is more important for people. And that is all, unless there's something else which you really want me to explain.
Yes, Anirudh, any more questions? Can you please unmute yourself? Yeah.
Thank you, sir. And your book was very inspirational. I found that too. Yeah. But I meant specifically like for the students or young children who would like to join the military, what are things they should know before ahead of time? Like, are there any things we can prepare ourselves to know about?
If they want to join the military, then what?
You see, presently, I think for a youngster, there are so many options as a career. For a career. In our time, they were very limited. So we thought what was exciting for us, we opted for it. Presently, I don't know what excites the young people. I'm not, my daughter is more in contact with the younger generation and what their aspirations are. Our aspiration, we felt we were in the God's own when we joined the army, the academy, and we came out as officer, because it was something we aspired, we got it. And we made it as our life and our total life. Presently, I think young people have got a very different minds. I appreciate that. My own son has not joined the army because he was a national talent scholar. He had a different set of ideas. He wanted to join infantry, my regiment. But I said, son, you're a national talent scholar. Now are you going to join an infantry soldier? Not that it is you don't want talented or scientific oriented mind, but I think they have got a place somewhere else also. Same way, I think every youngster who wants a challenge in life, who wants to face something which is unbelievably different, and you want to face it squarely and enjoy it, that is a challenge. I think I would recommend, they must join because a challenge of what the defense forces offer, no other career can offer anyway.
I want to tell you, sir, that even though there's a big generation gap, there are still many students all over India who really want to join the army and the military because of the pride and the honor it carries.
Yes.
that's,
Yeah.
that's really wonderful.
Yeah.
Anirudh.
Anirudh, you have any more question?
Yes, ma'am. If you allow, I
Yes,
want to
one
ask
more
one more
question.
question. Sir, I want to ask, at your lowest moments, in your harshest conditions, what was that beacon of hope? Or what was, like, simply put, what was that happy place that you would keep in the back of your mind? Like for most people, it would be their childhood home or a vacation spot. So what was that place you would go to that would make you feel secure at your harshest of conditions?
I think in my life, I've changed places every 2 years. I have no anchor. In fact, I really feel we have no anchor, no base, no place, as we can say, to fall back on. Even my own village belong to a place where you have a home, you have land, you have some your kith and kin. That is where you would like to go and visit. I think I've traveled length and breadth of India. I spent 16 years across Brahmaputra of my life. Now, there is no particular place or few places I can name which I would like to. In fact, I feel I must go and visit base camp. I would like to visit Nimbu. I would like to visit Nagaland. I think that is the way. I think our approach and attitude has become very different. There is nothing like childhood
No,
memories.
I think Anirudh was also asking, in your most tense moments, in your harshest moments, what is it that gave you that sense of quiet or
Now I think
feeling better,
yeah.
hopeful?
When I used to fly in the helicopter in the morning, I used to start in the morning about 6:30 in the morning, with a cup of coffee and off onto the glacier. I never had oxygen to breathe. Used to fly 18,000, 20,000, land on the glacier, spend the day. I learned, let me collect myself there is no other thought while flying. Pilots used to think, oh my God, the old man is, I think, conked off. He has closed his eyes. I said, listen, I'm meditating. I'm just relaxing. I want to be fresh when I land at 20,000. So don't disturb me.
Yeah.
I think it is a question of inner strength. You know, how one derives that inner strength, which is the maximum strength that you can ever have. Nothing else can give you that.
Absolutely.
I think I decided I am going to be fit. I'm going to be tough. I'm not going to have a time for acclimatization. I would go to Udhampur, come back next day and onto the glacier. Went to Bombay for a few days leave, came back, next day went back to the glacier. Doctor said, well, how are you managing it? Don't do it. It's bad for your health. I said, listen, I'm fighting a battle. I can't waste time. I can't have time at all for acclimatization and then going to meet the troops. So I think I derived essentially from my inner strength. I was told I was not too strong or hefty and hulky person, but I think internally, emotionally, I am very strong.
So hats off to you. Amazing. Such a big lesson for everybody. How you were traveling without oxygen to such high feet. It's all inner strength, as rightly said.
Yeah,
Inspiration for us.
Thank you, sir.
You have one more question, right? Before we move on? Yes.
This question is directed to Anjali, ma'am.
Okay.
I want to ask you, how did your emotions resonate, knowing the struggles your father had to endure at that time, and also knowing that there wasn't really much you could physically do to help him except give him the support that he needed?
I think, I know, this has been spoken about, Anirudh, a little
In your book, yes.
but I think that army children, they do grow up different.
Yeah.
You watch your father at different times in his life cope with different kinds of things. So I remember my mother used to always say that, when we came to Bombay, and she said, she would hear somebody say, I'm so tense, I'm going to miss my train. I'm so stressed because I haven't been able to get here or there on time. And she would say, they don't know what is stress and they don't know what is tension. Because when we grew up, there were very, very real times when we knew that my father's life was in danger. But I think you grow up with the same kind of strength that he talks about. You grow with that, knowing very subconsciously that you are going to be okay, that this is his life, this is what he has signed up for. And I don't even remember making this a very big deal as we were growing up. It was somewhere part of the DNA of just being an army brat, as they say. You took in stride these strange postings which took us all over the place, which made us change schools every now and then, and which brought in upheavals in our parents' lives, in my father's tenures. So I think, when I look back, I don't ever remember feeling somehow very different from other children growing up. It's only when I'm in the outside that I realize that I had a pretty different growing up stretch than, let's say, my husband, or for that matter, so many people who I meet who have not been part of the army circuit.
Thank you, ma'am. I somewhat understand that the beginning part, that after such a traumatic experience, every small problem or normal problem others go through, it just seems small in comparison.
Yeah, very insignificant. Yeah,
yes.
right. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you, Anirudh. And thank you for great questions. Wish you luck for all your endeavors. And now we have one question from Mr. Vijay Shankar. He's an advocate. He's also interested in history and literature. Yes, Mr. Vijay, can you please switch on your video?
Good evening, sir. Good evening, ma'ams.
Good evening to you.
Sir, my question is whether the demilitarization of Siachen is possible after the experience of Kargil and a more hawkish China nowadays.
I think let's not mix up China when we talk about the demilitarization of thing. I will touch it in a different way. You see, Siachen has been a very thorn as far as the Pakistan is concerned, because we outwitted and got it there in 84. Musharraf was the commander of the force, the brigade with him, tried to dislodge us in 87. He failed. Afterwards, he stated, because of his failure in Siachen, he launched the Kargil operations. Now, this is the background. If you think that you can trust Pakistan, up to you. If you lose a height, what it means to take it back. Kayat Post, an example, I think is something which is unbelievable effort is required. You lose Bilaford La Pass, can you take it back? If all that Pakistani has got to come there with a small detachment and deny your access there. Now, this is the reality. If you have some other considerations, if there's so much money being spent, you want to prepare to take a risk, lose Siachen means what? Now, we went to Siachen for Pakistan, but now there is China on the other side. China with up to Depsang Plateau at the base of the Karakoram Pass, there is a link, very possibly to be made. And what happens then? Then it's an entirely different story. In our time, I was there. I used to be going to Daulat Beg Oldie, those track junction at the base. I used to fly high up and I look around, even the Aksai Chin, and I used to feel, oh my God, this is Aksai Chin. Today, nobody can do that because China is active, alert, and they're wanting to collaborate with their friends, Pakistan. If you demilitarize, if you think that you can still trust that Pakistan also will demilitarize and go back and not come back, you say, I got drones, I got satellite imagery. It takes a man and a dog to come and occupy a height, and to throw them out, you will require a Herculean effort. So I will leave the choice, how you look at it. Environmentalists will say, hey, get away. I know that. But for the sake of national security, If environment is your consideration, economics is your consideration, risk taking is your consideration, go ahead. I mean, that is the way I put it.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much, sir. Many congratulations on your book, and I'm looking forward to read it.
Yeah, certainly.
From the-
You'll enjoy it. These are the live experiences. These are not a researched book. It's not by going anywhere, talking to people. It's all in my memory, which I have put it down. You'll enjoy it.
Thank you, sir. And I also belong to Rashtriya Military School, Ajmer.
Okay.
Yes, sir. 97 batch.
Great.
The brigade commander in 1987 was also from my school, sir.
Who?
Brigadier C.S. Nongyal, then General Nongyal, as he was.
Again, of course.
Yes.
He was,
Yes, he was from our school. 90,
as far as I'm
yes, sir.
concerned, I could depend on him. He was a tiger. In fact, in the real sense of it.
Yeah.
Mountaineer, adventurous,
Yes,
and
Yes,
a
sir.
pushing person. He is the one who
Yes,
could
sir.
ensure that Kite Post was captured.
Yes, sir. He was from 1957 batch of our school, sir.
Right.
Great.
Right. Great
Yes,
man.
sir.
I got a lot of
Yes,
time
sir.
for him.
Yes, sir. Thanks a lot, sir. Thanks, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vijayji. Thank you for always taking out time. He's a regular on our sessions. We have a question from Sarthak. He is unable to switch on his, unable to get in the internet, has some issues. He says, sir, any joyful memory that you would like to share from the time that you were posted at the border?
Any joyful memory of that period?
A small achievement is a joy.
Oh,
When the first joyous moment was when the Kite Post was captured. I had left the battalion headquarters about 3 o'clock, 3:30. Came back to my hut in Nemo. And I could not wait till the whole attack was completed because the helicopters couldn't fly afterwards. I reached there and there was a call from the brigade, Chandranagal's brigade. Sir, we ultimately captured the post. My God, my son was there. He had come to spend his summer down there. He was jumping in joy. I wish I could join him, but I think that one of the most thrilling experiences. And the second one was in the Vajra Shakti. When we knew that a new battalion, if it launches attack, I have no ammunition and I had no capacity to hang on. And that is the time their brigade commander Musharraf decided to pull back and call off the attack. I said, my God, that was the biggest relief I had ever got in my life, because it was a question of disgrace for me, loss of battle, loss of Bilafurla Pass and the Siachin Glacier, and what would happen to me? Maybe a court martial. But with all that came, I said, orders for withdrawal had been given to my son. That was, I think, the two joyous moments I think I ever enjoyed.
anything that Anjali will like to remind him that maybe he's missed out in talking about?
Yeah, he's actually sounding a little more contained. My brother actually in his letter wrote back to us to say that Dad was ready to dance a jig. And I think, I mean, and what I kind of find interesting is, because we've never spoken about this till you had the question posed to us, I'm very, it's really quite wonderful that almost everything that is connected to joy or happiness is also pretty much connected to his work there. Like, joy is not about anything outside of the work zone or outside of an action that is being undertaken. And I think that more or less, exemplifies Dad's involvement. And I think it is for so many people in the army that your life is with the force. Your involvement with the force is akin to family. And so your moments of great joy and your moments of deep sadness are also connected with the force and the work you do. So, I mean, I would also like to just say that because of which, as a family, I don't ever remember celebrating our birthdays, just like my parents did not celebrate their anniversary together. I remember many birthdays when my father wasn't with us. I remember so many Diwalis that my father wasn't with us. But I think joy came from being together at whatever point in time in the year that we were together. And my mom and dad would both say that Diwali is when we are together. Celebrations of birthdays and anniversaries are whenever we are together. So there was almost this irrelevance to dates. So it pretty much encapsulated this whole career in the army that forced these moments of joy. And I think we were liberated, I mean, I used to tell the people around me, we are liberated from dates. We don't have to wait for a Diwali to celebrate.
And till now, he's so, he's so joyful. I mean, when he's talking about his stint and he's talking about suddenly when Mr. Vijay mentioned about his earlier colleague, he was so full of, wanting to share. I mean, this is the beauty of the forces. And I'm sure we are so blessed to have you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
So Neeta, sorry to interrupt, but I think he would be far more excitable for Op Vajra Shakti and Op Rajiv than he would be for my brother's wedding or mine. So for so many people, like that's their moment of joy when they're getting their kids married or like his 25th wedding anniversary. No, none of that. The moment that pops up is connected to the men he commanded, the operations that were undertaken. So
I can see so much of excitement. Yes, sir, you were saying something before I
just wanted to. I was in the Siachen tenure. That is the time my daughter got engaged. That is the time I could just come for a short visit to get her married. So it was one of the many things people said, how are you going to manage it? The family is in Bombay, the boy is in Bombay, you are sitting here. I said, my wife, very competent person, she will manage it. My daughter will give her a helping hand, and I will go just about a week before the wedding. That's the end of it. Because there was no question of celebrations of the type which people have. But I think for us, one day if we get together, that's a hurrah.
Fantastic. And Anjali, anything that you would like to mention about the book that we've not talked about, or maybe anything surprising that you discovered while writing this book, which you didn't know about? I would like to definitely end on that.
Yeah, I really think that, the book needed to be written, Neeta. When I finished writing it, I just felt I'm glad this is going to go out beyond the family, beyond mom, dad, me, my brother talking about it. I'd like more people to just know about it and talk about it. They need to know. So every time I sign a book, dad and I sign a book, we really write in every single book because some stories deserve to be told. And that is literally the byline, I would say, of the book. I just think that we live very privileged lives when we live safely. And I think it's important for people to at least briefly visit those lives that are not in safe havens like we are. I think there's a lot that is demanded of the man in uniform at all levels. And I don't think the ones who are not in uniform or not connected to families in uniform quite understand. India has had a pretty strong, history of military encounters with its neighbors. And, I think every time that moment comes, there is a lot of interest and then it wanes. And I just hope books like this keep getting written to remind people that there is a reason why we are privileged and safe. So I think that would be the bigger goal that I wanted as the book neared its end. And I think for dad, militarily, I think it was very important that this get recorded for posterity. So
there is a find I think somebody who is who was a young officer, Lieutenant General Khandare, he's there, I think, on the listening, and he's taking, he's hearing all this what we are talking about, and I'm so happy because he was the one who came along with the battalion in 1988 in the summer months and seen some action, and of 14 Garhwal, that is my own regimental battalion, And he is the one who I can see him here. Atal. So
Sure.
happy to see him here.
And Neeta, I think General Kandare has also said that he'd like to make a comment. So would you
Sure,
be
sir.
in the chat? I can
Sure, sir.
see. Yes.
If he's, yes, sir, please switch on your video. We'd love to hear from you. So it's such a privilege to have you with us today. So please switch on your video.
Yeah.
Such a privilege to have you, Lieutenant General Kandare, sir, with us today.
Thank you so much for allowing me to speak. And what can I speak in front of my general? General Kulkarni is someone in my regiment in the army we adore.
I'm sure.
When he was our center commandant and Anjali was a young girl, I joined as a second lieutenant. I think it was September 79. And that was my first Dashera in the regiment. And General Kulkarni then was Colonel Kulkarni. And as he rose, we just tried to emulate what he was doing. And it is to our good luck and fortune that my battalion and we landed up on the glacier when he was our colonel of the regiment and the general officer commanding 28th. The general has been very humble, and so has Anjali been. I want to, what comment I wanted to say was, he's said only about 2 incidents. Practically every day the general was with us on the glacier. Practically every day. And so was then Brigadier Chandan Singh Nogia. And it was very inspiring for us to see, like what you see in the movies and all, that people are in some aristocratic bungalow and all. No aristocratic bungalow. He was there with us. And, the conditions there were so severe. Even for water to be had, we had to melt that blue ice there. Our only solace used to be, we had about 1 bottle of kerosene oil for a 24-hour cycle. And the general was with us. He was there all through, whether it was intense firing from the Pakistani side, artillery firing, every day it used to be happening. And he used to be there braving with us. So, it is like he mentioned about the appetite, the best possible ration the nation gave us. But at that altitude and at that extreme cold, minus 45 degrees, we had no appetite. And even the general, when we used to offer him, he never took anything because we knew that he was also going through the same rigors. And at his age, I was a young person, but I think age was still not very kind to him. And he was braving all that with us.
Amazing.
If it was snowing, he was there. If it was firing, he was there. And one more interesting thing I'll tell you, the helicopters were a rare commodity, but an essential commodity for us. It was only that helicopter which would bring us things. Our injured people would be carried by the same helicopter. So in a way, we were very happy whenever the general came because that helicopter was coming. And that helicopter would bring our letters from home. And that helicopter would also bring, and he was very kind. At times he used to bring us 1 small packet because he would carry some green vegetables for us. And my God, that used to be celebrated for us. But he was so mindful of the fact that we were living in those conditions. There was a period in 1988, somewhere I think around April or so, Pakistanis tried again to attack Bana post, and then subsequently somewhere around I think September, they tried another attempt at Siala. And those two moments, the general was with us all through. The Pakis had fixed ropes. Then one of our officers went down. He got killed in action. He got a Mahavir Chakra because the general recommended him for Mahavir Chakra. And then another was at Siala. Siala is the northernmost post that complex that we have. And we had one brave daredevil officer, or we still have, now Colonel AP Singh, then Major AP Singh. And he went and occupied a new post, and the general was all through with us to see. When we occupied that hill feature, the Pakis were just 50 meters below. So again, I think the general has been extremely humble and modest in not giving out. I think for him, every day and every moment must have been, I was seeing it from my own small prism, but he was seeing Northern Glacier, Central Glacier, Southern Glacier. He was seeing the other sectors of Kargil. What we are looking at Eastern Ladakh today, he has seen it through his eyes all through DBO, which is the northernmost point there. And sir, I must tell you, I have shared your book with a number of people. Firstly, I am thankful to you that you brought this out. Otherwise, many generations would have gone thinking that we've just gone there and made merry and come back. So you made people aware of, and just to remind everyone here, 1987, 88, 89 is the period when the country was going through a very tough time. We had Sri Lanka on our hands, we had Siachen going on our hands, we had Punjab which was disturbed, Northeast was also not quiet. So all over, and when our chief and our army commander would have known that people like General Kulkarni are handling Siachen, they would have at least been assured of the fact that out of the 4 corners which were disturbed, there is 1 corner which would still be safe. And I say that because I have seen it happening. And that is the comment I wanted to make. And Anjali, thanks for putting it on paper. And General Kulkarni sir, salute as always.
There's people like you and your men who had delivered. It's me, the only bit of a backup and will cheer up sort of support.
That is most important, sir. When people say there was a question about media, I think I'm not against media, but what you said, good old days when we had to deal with the enemy the way we felt, which was most appropriate and most professional, and we didn't have to give evidence that we've done something right.
You're right.
So well said. So rightly said, sir.
Thank you so much,
Thank you,
General
Vinod.
Kandare. I mean, I've been hearing about you from Dad. I won't say much on this talk, but thank you for your very, very generous acknowledgement of the whole book and the process as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for gracing our platform. It's such a privilege. I mean, to have you with Lieutenant General Kulkarni today with us and sharing your thoughts. And you've really summed up the whole meeting and summed up the book so well. And I'm sure a lot of people who will watch this later on the YouTube, I'm sure they'll be convinced to read this book. This is so much, as we've been saying, need of the hour. People should have known about it. And good, that's true. Your writing, we've come to know, sir. Hats off to you. And the whole conversation has given me a lot of goosebumps and a lot of moments to be really proud of our forces. And I'm so happy. And anything else, sir, you would like to mention before we sign off today? Any last words from you?
Well, I think history is something very important. It's related to the geography, in the sense Siachen is something which people don't know. So what it means, people when they talk about Siachen, why are we there? Why are we spending so much of money? Because they don't know the geography, they don't know the history. I think it's time we saw our own country's map and what is our vulnerability. I think people ought to realize it. Cost in terms of money means nothing. Honor and safety of the country is the most critical and important aspect. People are forgetting.
So very right, sir. So very well said. This is the book that we've been talking about, and Siachin 9. Yes, this is an important moment for all of us. Yes. 2 very lucky winners will get this book. I'll announce the name of the winners on the social media a little later. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Neeta. It's been a wonderful conversation for us.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, General Kandare. Thank you.